IVM.
Welcome to All Things Policy, a daily podcast supported by Pragati, a flagship media initiative of the Takshashila Institution. We are a bunch of policy nerds based in Bengaluru, and we like to bring fresh perspectives to Indian affairs and an Indian perspective to global affairs. So grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and join us for today's chat.
Hi, I'm Sarthak, and I welcome you to one more episode of All Things Policy. In the last few weeks, Bangladesh's growth story has been in the news. Bangladesh's GDP per capita closely rival India's. It is significantly higher than that of Pakistan. I am comparing it with Pakistan because Bangladesh was born out of Pakistan at some point of time. When it comes to socioeconomic parameters, indicators, here also Bangladesh does extremely well as compared to its neighbors India and Pakistan. The growth trajectory of Bangladesh has been interesting. In this episode, we'll talk about some features of this story. And to discuss this, I have with me my colleague Apurva. Apurva is a senior program manager with the Takshashila Institution. He handles Takshila's flagship postgraduate program in public policy. Hi, Apurva.
Hello, Sarthak. Thanks for having me again.
Again, yes. We have been doing it for some time now. Yeah. So, Apurva, you have been studying about the growth trajectory of Bangladesh. What are some of the interesting trends here?
Right, Sarthak. So, I think Bangladesh growth trajectory or economic development pathway is very interesting. And I think of late, several researchers, economists, and scholars have also started looking at the trajectory of Bangladesh. And one very strange feature is that Bangladesh has actually bucked the conventional trend and thinking of economists. So earlier, economists like Joseph Stiglitz and Danny Roderick at some point would argue, and they were skeptical, that the countries outside Europe or East Asian economies, they just can't industrialize using the export-led growth model just because they don't have that comparative advantage. Right, and what they were actually referring was broadly South Asia region, South Asian region, and other countries. But Bangladesh has actually sort of defied this logic. Earlier, it was thought that only East Asian economies can have rapid economic growth using this export-orienting, light manufacturing trajectory, and then gradually move up the value chain and start making high-end electronics, right? But Bangladesh has, and it was said that only these countries can do, only China, Korea's, and the Taiwan's can do, and not other countries. Bangladesh has reversed this trend. And what Bangladesh has, this is to 2021, is actually the 50th year of Bangladesh's independence. And so what in the past 50 years, Bangladesh has reversed this trend. They have defied this logic. In terms of per capita GDP, it has actually surpassed India and Pakistan. If you see the GDP per capita curve of Bangladesh since 1980s, and this is from the world data, you will see a smooth growing curve from 1980s to 2017, 18, and 19. If you compare the similar curve with Pakistan or let's say India, you will say that while Pakistan has almost stagnated, rapid improvements in GDP per capita. One reason that explains the sudden rise of Bangladesh is a new kind of industrial revolution, Sarthak. And we all know this 19th century industrial revolution that started from England, from Britain, and then it made Europe and other countries prosperous. And it was predicted that industrial revolution may not happen in Asia. But Bangladesh has sort of shown that industrial revolution can happen in Asia. And it is this industrial revolution of a very different kind that has led Bangladesh grow in such a consistent manner. What they have done is that Bangladesh is now the garment factory of the world. They are making garments, clothes, and shoes. And it is this particular industry that is generating employment, revenues, and growth for the country. They are exporting these goods to rich countries. Several big prestigious fashion companies, fashion brands, they have set their shops in Bangladesh. and it's their industrial policies that we may sort of talk later, and the incentives that it provides. It has these sort of processes and these things that have actually worked in its favor, and it has not happened overnight. It started in 1970s and it kept on growing.
Yeah, so this is interesting, Apurv. At present, Bangladesh is the third largest exporter of garments, and of all the exports that happens from Bangladesh, is the apparel sector that dominates. So Bangladesh has been trying to do that, but I was wondering what is the reason why their products are their garment products are extremely competitive, right? So why their products, why they are competitive, why they're able to trade so much in garments. Now, different countries have their own comparative advantages. Trade happens on the basis of comparative advantage, not on the basis of absolute advantage. So I would like to know, or I would like to explore, what is Bangladesh's comparative advantage. And one thing I want to point out to our listeners here, that when that in our public policy programs, we talk about comparative advantage. In fact, we have a session on trade, international trade. We have a session on comparative advantage. So if you are interested, you can just look for our courses. And at present, admissions are open for our 12-week graduate certificate program in public policy, defense and foreign affairs, technology policy, and health and life sciences. The application deadline for our upcoming cohort is 28th August. So coming back to our discussion. So what exactly is that comparative advantage that Bangladesh offers? See, for example, there can be some countries which produce products which are different, which are innovative. They have a very niche market, and no other country or no other economy is able to manufacture that. Products are extremely innovative, and in some cases, it might be something else. So, what is that comparative advantage that Bangladesh offers?
So there are two aspects of this, Sarthak, and in the later sort of part of your comment question, you have actually mentioned that Bangladesh has started with a low end, if I may use the word, low end labor intensive manufacturing industry such as garment industry. Right, this is something which other East Asian countries also adopted. Right, this is the same pathway which they adopted, and over the years when they became better and better, they moved to higher value chains. So from low manufacturing, they move to high manufacturing products, and then to electronics, and that's why we have one of the best electronics brand coming from that part of the world. Bangladesh has just started from step one, so that's why the garments and the shoe industry it's labor intensive, as we all know, and because of of lower cost in the labor and some other incentives that their industrial policy provides this particular sector, that's why it has become a garment factory of the world. And apart from several other reasons, right after its independence, the government decided to give more incentives to the garment industry. So regulations were reconsidered, redundant regulations were removed, more SEZs were constructed, labor policies were changed, and that would help this industry grow. There was another factor that worked in Bangladesh's favor. It was the multi-fiber arrangement, which allowed Bangladesh to import quota free until 2005, provided the initial impetus. In a nutshell, if you see, Sarthak, what has happening is it is reaffirming the very power of globalization, right? So they are importing goods from other countries. They are adding value to those goods. They are making garments, they are making shoes, and they are exporting to rich countries. So in a way, the naysayers and these doom stories of globalization, Bangladesh is actually sort of saying that, hey, that story is still live and it is still active. So in these several ways, Bangladesh has sort of become a garment factory and the epicenter of all those economic activities.
Yeah. So, Abu, this is again kind of interesting because Bangladesh was part of the Indian subcontinent. Bangladesh was part of the present Bangladesh at one point of time was part of Pakistan. And sometimes, I mean, when we create laws, some existing laws you might take into reference and accordingly you draft it, right? So when it comes to labor regulations, for example, the laws that each of these countries, India, Bangladesh, Pakistan has, it might be influenced by some common policies that would have impacted all these places at some point of time. But Bangladesh has possibly gone ahead and done some changes, and they have moved in a different trajectory. In case of India, for example, the labor regulations remain extremely restrictive. But in case of Bangladesh, things have changed. It seems that the labor regulations are slightly more flexible over there.
That's right, Sarthak. So the Trade Disputes Act that sort of predates India and India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh formation. Bangladesh, after its independence in 1970s, eased at some, they gave some relaxation when it comes to Trade Disputes Act. And a similar sort of reconsiderations were made when it comes to other labor policies. And I think that has sort of given the industry more leverage to set up their shops in Bangladesh. I would say that provided incentives.
Yeah, but again, there would have been, I mean, there have been different kind of unintended consequences of the same as well, right? So, I mean, we have seen incidents where laborers might have been exploited. There was this incident, the Rana Plaza incident, in which somewhere around 1100 workers, they died in one place because the kind of place they were working, it did not have the necessary safeguards. I mean, I'm not sure how much things would have improved after that. They came up with certain fire standards, some safety standards, building standards. But yeah, I mean, that might still be a concern, I guess.
That's right, Sarthak, and you're right, because one of the intended consequences is that companies, in order to reduce the cost, operational cost, they may sort of flout some of these norms and rules. So Rana Plaza, as you mentioned, is a classic example. 1100 people, 1100 is an official estimate. So some people say that there are more. So, and there were several other fire incidents after 2013 Rana Plaza. In 2010, there was a massive workers' strike because they were asking for more wages and better working conditions. Yeah, I think if Bangladesh wants to have that competitive edge and wants to become and still wants to remain the sort of garment factory of the world, they just can't afford to ignore all these issues and aspects.
Yeah, exactly. And apart from the wages, right, as we are all talking about that, wages tend to be low. The standards, the regulations are such that there are chances that they might be exploited. Apart from all these things, one more thing has also been part of the Bangladesh growth story. That is the linkage between the state and the civil society. Generally what happens is, generally the traditional the textbook definition of state is, state is that institution which has the monopoly over violence, and state is that institution which collects taxes. It provides different kind of essential services. But in the case of Bangladesh, we see a different kind of a model, in the sense that in Bangladesh, the civil society plays a very significant role, and they are the ones who are delivering different kinds of services. So somewhere the state has given some freedom, given some space, given more freedom, given more space for the civil society to operate.
That's right, Sarthak. And the role of civil, there's a huge body of literature on the role of civil society, NGOs, and INGOs in Bangladesh's development. In 1971, when Bangladesh got freedom, the state was weak, right? And it didn't have that capacity to tax its citizens, and from the revenue generated from the tax, they can provide services or the basic sort of provisioning like healthcare, education, or employment to the citizens. It was at this point of time when NGOs and civil society players stepped in, and they actually played the role of service delivery, I would say, arm of the government. And the prime example was the role of BRAC, which is the Bangladesh Rural Administrative Committee, and Muhammad Yunus Grameen Bank. It's very noteworthy the year of their foundation, Sarthak. BRAC was founded in 1972, 1 year after its independence, and Grameen Bank was founded in 1976. So it's these civil society organizations that have played a major role in the foundations of Bangladesh economic development trajectory. They pitched in where they were supposed to pitch in, and they, as I said, that it was these organizations, these civil society organizations, that gave education, health, employment, water, sanitation, all those basic services that a government should do. One of the intended consequences could be that they may co-opt the role of the state, but it's just sort of a hypothetical thing, because over the past 50 years they have worked very well. This combination has worked very well, but ideally it should be the state who should be doing this. So I mean, I think just as we have to see how this relationship will play in distant future.
Yeah, and one more thing here, right? So when we talk about civil society, there you have also seen the role of microfinances, right? So microfinance has played a very significant role in Bangladesh. In fact, the way it was delivered, many of these microfinance institutions, they are delivering microfinance to generally the female members of the household, generally the senior most female member of the household, and which in turn is leading to a scenario where more amount of money is more amount of resources are being allocated for child care and other activities, as a result of which the socio-economic indicators over a period of time, here we are seeing better results from Bangladesh. So health outcomes, educational outcomes, this is becoming better. And also female labor force participation rate, Bangladesh does pretty well as compared to countries like India.
That's right, Sarthak. And when the microfinance thing started in 1970s by Grameen Bank, one of the prime condition was that they will give credit to the female sort of who's the female person in a household, right? The mukhya, the female mukhya of the household, so that she has an agency, and it's she can use that money for feeding the children or taking care of the health of the household, health care sort of needs of the household, or other sort of basic sort of necessities and requirements. And so it's actually a miracle that Bangladesh, this women-centric development thing has emerged in the past 40-50 years, because this is where the agency lied. And there's a whole body of development literature that says that if you want to improve the basic social conditions of a society, give agency to the women.
Exactly. So, I mean, this is helping both, right? You are trying to reduce the gender disparities, and at the same time, you are trying to focus on human development. You are having more capable individuals who are possibly going to be gainfully employed in future. But yeah, Bangladesh still has many challenges in future. So we'll discuss some of these challenges after the break. We'll see you at the other end of the break.
Hey, everybody, let me tell you a little bit about what happened on the IVM Podcast Network this week. On Cyrus Says, Cyrus was joined by Irfan Pabani, who is an old friend of his. They talk about the rich flavors of Indian food and Parsi food specifically. He was also joined by author and historian William Dalrymple. They discuss literature, history, and the culture of the Indian subcontinent. And let me give you a few quick things to check out. Chuck, aka Deepak Gopal Krishnan of Simplified and the Origin of Things fame, has Rohan Joshi, formerly of AIB, on his show. Also on this round is on me. Gautam Purohit of Thakur's Bhojnalaya was on. On the note, Maruk and I talks about the cabinet reshuffle. And do check out Global Victoria Tech Talks. We talk about the booming gaming and edutech industries in Australia. Do follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram to keep up what's going on the network. And I'd like to finally thank our sponsors on the network this week, Cred, Ziet, and Global Victoria. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Hey listeners, we are back. So before the break, we were talking about some of the good things that Bangladesh has done. But Bangladesh also has different kind of challenges. And some of the key challenges might impact its growth trajectory. So Apurva, do you want to add something here?
Yes, Sarthak. So, a biggest challenge that Bangladesh faces is climate change. And it's a combination of climate change, floods, erratic storms, and rains that this country, faces every season, every year. And recently, two Cornell University researchers, as part of a paper commissioned by the International Labour Organization, warns that the problem of rising sea levels is receiving little attention from those leading sustainability efforts in the sector. They actually said that the vast swathes of areas will be underwater by 2030. Now, these areas are the same areas where most of these garment factories are, and they are referring to Bangladesh. Several other scholars and researchers and economists have warned that climate change, floods, and rain can be a massive dampener in Bangladesh growth trajectory. So it's a severe area of concern. I think the government of Bangladesh must be sort of making some policies to address this problem. The other sort of area is religious fundamentalism. Although Bangladesh has successfully curbed and curbed the rise of religious fundamentalism, but it can be a trigger. Rise of religious fundamentalism can be a trigger for the flight of foreign capital. So that is also something that so this is all the political economy of all those things. So Bangladesh and its government has to sort of address this factor also. Also, there's other aspects such as diversifying. I think, Sarthak, you are the best person to sort of comment
so
on
again,
that.
they have been trying to make things at a cheaper price, and that's where their comparative advantage lies at the moment. But in future, they have to diversify to other goods as well, right? So they cannot, I mean, maybe at this point of time, they are best at producing garments, but eventually they have to diversify to other sectors. Good thing is they are already doing well when it comes to pharmaceutical and other sectors. They have to look at other sectors and how they can improve their manufacturing capacities in these areas. So I think these are some of the key challenges that Bangladesh has as of now. These are some of the things that it has to address. And one more thing is, at present, the linkage that is there between civil society and the state, right? So state has given some freedom, space to the civil society, and civil society is performing. But it might so happen that in future, some of these actors who are part of the civil society now would want to join politics or would want to become part of the state. In that case, again, what is going to be the equation? What will be the dynamics? That is something we need to see. It might so happen that the state does not want to cede power at that point of time. And we have already seen this happening in some other places. Right? So again, it can lead to clashes. In that case, the entire development agenda that the civil society is trying to focus on, that might get hampered. That equation, that fine balance that is there might get hampered.
That's right, Sarthak. And towards the end, all I can say is that we need to look at Bangladesh's growth story from a very different lens, because, as I said, in the starting of this conversation, that some of the frameworks that we have used are not satisfactory frameworks to see how Bangladesh has fared over the past few years. And as a public policy professionals, as someone who is interested in issues such as development, governance, and other things, Bangladesh has moved from being a basket case to a success story, and this is something that we should learn from. And as a country, we should imbibe some of those features.
Thanks for summarizing it, Apur.
Thank you, Sarthak. It was great talking to you.
Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. We'll meet again in one more episode of All Things Policy.
If you liked our show, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can tune into them on the IVM Podcast app, ivmpodcast.com, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also follow IVM on social media. The handle is @IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And hey, if you'd like to dive into Takshashila's research on technology, strategy, and economic affairs, check us out at our Twitter handle @TakshashilaINST or our website takshashila.org.in.
Hi everybody, just wanted to ask everyone for a quick favor. We're running a brand survey right now and would really appreciate it if you could let us know what you think about the advertising on IVM. Go to ivmpodcast.com/survey and do let us know. As part of this, we'll be selecting 10 random participants and sending them some IVM swag, so do fill out those surveys.
We live in an age of disruption, of immense change in every aspect of work, life, and business. But is the old way of doing things truly dead? And are we ever going to stop saying the new normal? Join me, Varun Dugirala, on Advertising is Dead every Tuesday as I talk to entrepreneurs, leaders, creators, and change makers from across business, media, marketing, and beyond to dig a little deeper into how we got here, what we're doing now, and where we're headed. You can catch all the episodes of Advertising is Dead on the IVM Podcast website, app, or wherever you get your podcast from.